Hello, dear friends. I'm glad to welcome you to Sotnik-TV. Thank you to everyone presently watching the show. I hereby invite you to enjoy our weekly news summary. It's April 25th, 2020. The time in Moscow is 7 p.m. sharp. We're streaming live. The propaganda in Russia never sleeps, it's busy mimicking and transforming as well as changing its shape and form. Still, the smell of this substance permeates everyone and everything. Yet the propagandists can even sense the slightest gust of wind and desperately try to spread their influence inside Russia as well as outside of the country. Luckily, this is our first topic today, my discussion with Ksenia Kirillova, who is a political analyst. Has the propaganda in Russia changed due to the whole ordeal with the coronavirus? Well, no doubt the coronavirus currently is the main topic for Russian propagandists, as all the legacy media has nothing else to talk about. During recent months, the propaganda has been changing its direction. They first started with spreading the idea of a coronavirus epidemic being simply impossible in Russia. At the same time, they were saying that the West was weak, helpless and miserable. Russia was laughing at the West as it was unable to deal with the virus, mocking at how flawed Western democracy and unions were. The countries inside the European Union were reported to have been clashing among each other, and only Russia knew the way out. Then the virus became the actual threat for Russia, so they shifted the focus to a conspiracy. The virus was created by the West either to destroy Russia or to use the pandemic as an excuse for the financial crisis. So it was developed inside the US or British labs. Such theories were promoted by government-owned outlets in Russia, such as the Defense Ministry website as well as the Foreign Ministry magazine. So that's a sort of propaganda. And then the situation worsened inside Russia. That was when the Russian authorities had to demonstrate to the people how dangerous the coronavirus is. That was supposed to keep people isolated. It's hard to make people obey isolation in Russia, as there has been no allowance granted by the government. People are on their own surviving during that quarantine. Despite the severe economic scenario, the propaganda keeps promoting this conspiracy. As usual, the authorities use the situation against their political enemies, such as the Russian liberals. They have now named the reason for the disaster. This is very similar to Nazi propaganda. They say those who are liberals are the ones who are keeping the nation from uniting in face of this moral enemy, which is necessary for all of us to survive. The worse it gets, the more they benefit. They are reported to have called for removing the quarantine, which is a lie, as many such liberals promote the quarantine. Still, they say that people like us will infect everyone around us. We're close to being named the main reason for the pandemic. Similar reasons were used by Nazis when creating the ghetto in Warsaw. They declared Jews were spreading deadly infectious diseases and needed to be isolated. That is very alarming. Russian propaganda shows its hypocrisy with the following. They mainly promote the idea of obeying the quarantine and getting vaccinated when possible. Everyone is now waiting for such a vaccine to be invented. The entire world is. Amid this, Russia is fighting the so-called coronavirus fakes. That means that an author or any report or failure by the authorities may now receive criminal charges and or major fine. However, for some reason, the authorities continue to cover up their conspiracy theorists. They're free to promote their ideas among the most radical and conservative citizens, suggesting the whole thing was created by Bill Gates himself, as if he were part of a global microchipping program. They say the whole thing was made up by the global government, so everyone speaking up for the quarantine or the vaccine is an unsafe agent created by the global government. Then it turns out that those conspiracy theorists in Russia are in close contact with those in the US, so much of the propaganda theories continue to circulate back and forth. destabilizing the US. Russian authorities hate it when someone breaks their strict laws. Still, they don't mind setting up riots in other countries. What is the true nature of SARS CoV-2 that initially led to COVID-19? I've discussed that with Andrei Penkovsky, a political analyst. Coming up next, see part of our dialogue. This is no longer a rumor. Step by step, the entire story has been traced by the major virologists. And over time, we can see more and more of the details revealed. Now, I'm not a fan of Barack Obama, which is a known fact. Still, I gotta give it to him for not just being full of hot air, but also banning dangerous research back in 2014. That research was conducted by the North Carolina University lab. There was an international team of scientists. They published an article in Nature in 2014 describing their progress in this research. They reported a new hybrid virus made of a SARS-type virus combined with a bat virus that has proven its potential for survival inside a human body. They created a virus that can be contracted by people, just like SARS does. At the same time, it was able to spread fast, which was similar to the bat virus.
Который не поражал человеческий организм, но он обладал свойствами гораздо более быстрого распространения.
So they have created a new virus. Due to its special characteristic of spreading rapidly, obtained from the bat virus, it was much more dangerous for human than the original SARS was. The science team was allegedly headed by Mrs. Xi Lee, a rising star and the Frankenstein of the 21st century. She was busy promoting and raising the funds for the project in question. She claimed to have been studying the ways of the natural emergence of a virus that would be as dangerous for human as SARS was, and would also be able to spread much faster. So she has proven that it was possible. She has shown the genetic code exists, which consisted of 30,000 nucleotides, and she revealed the whole thing in this article. That was followed by certain indignation on behalf of the science community. They criticized her research, saying it was too dangerous. There even was an investigation by the US Congress. As a result, the US cut funds for further research. However, Mrs. Xi Ling managed to transfer the main group along with all the materials to the main bacteriological center in China, located in Wuhan. Further research was guided by the Chinese Science Academy, special services, military, and the rest. According to the article describing her progress, the virus could have made a perfect bacteriological weapon. The current pandemic proves that. Of course, the rest of the countries became interested in such kinds of instruments as well. Still, China didn't have to start the study from scratch, as the entire research team moved there. Now moving to the Russian part of the story, let me share some assumption that seems quite logical to me. After the article had been published, those in Vector, a research center in Russia, couldn't stay away from it. They had to repeat the studies of John Lee, and they sure got to work on that in the Vector lab. Considering the pandemic that followed the lab explosion, the virus we're dealing with now has been modified. So I guess both versions from Wuhan and Russia originated from the virus initially created in the lab of North Carolina University. However, something strange has happened in Wuhan. More and more people accept the following idea of the coronavirus origin, so it's becoming a common opinion nowadays. It seems strange, but even state media takes this view. For example, academician Maslov is the major specialist in China and Russia and the head of the Institute of the Far East. I watched a show on Federal TV. On the show, he furiously explained about the virus originating from the Wuhan lab. He also gave out some data that wasn't very known before. He must have done that at the behest of the Russian government. So he told that only the science center had initially been quarantined in Wuhan. First, they isolated the lab there. Then there was the center, and when it finally broke free, they isolated the city. The main reason for the story of it not being man-made, some of the scientists there got infected and died. Thus, the first people to die were from that laboratory. And such was the story of the virus origin. This is it for today. Take care of yourself, stay healthy, and make sure to watch Sotnik-TV.